This episode of Finding Demo Surf Fishing is being brought to you by Ninja Tackle. Head on over to ninjatackleva.com and look at all the amazing, great, and cool tools that they have going on there up in Virginia. I love Matt's shop. You guys know this. You've seen any of my social media. You always see me using Ninja Tackle rods. I love mine. I have zero problems with them. I've got two 7-footers that I absolutely love for the beach and inshore, kayak, all of it. Such a great set of rods. The travel rod, so fun. You can take it anywhere. It breaks down very nicely into a travel case, all the way up to my 8.6. Hey, slinging lures from the beach, loving it. 9-footer, I can do that too. Sometimes I use it for sets, up to my 12. And hey, I think there's even a bigger one coming. You'll have to take a look at the website though. If you need reels, rigs, whole bunch of stuff like that, lots in there. Bait, hey, yeah, he's got it. If you're into firearm and firearm accessories, Ninja Tactical. Yep, whole nother side of that great website. If you need an optic or something like that, and maybe you need a couple of pieces for an AR, hey, he might have them. So Ninja Tactical, still in line there. Great stuff. NinjaTackleVA.com. Go take a look. You won't be sorry. Yes, new week, new episode. Well, actually, it's a continuation episode. So, yeah, as I said in the last week, Ben and I had a weird technical difficulty there, and the episode was great. It was just flowing, so good of information, and I was loving every minute of it. But, yeah, kind of got cut off, so we had to reschedule to finish up the episode, and when we did, the episode there to finish up that last section actually ended up turning into an episode in itself. Lots more information, lot knowledge, really, that was just dropped. So really fun to continue on with that. And because it lasted so long, I couldn't put it in the first episode. I couldn't ask you guys to hang out for that long. So gave you a secondary on here for you to take a look at and enjoy. And hey, I think you're going to find a lot of really good information from it, and I hope you really do. So without further ado, let's get back into the show. It's going to be a good one. Well, this has been fun. I mean, I'm having a great time here, and let's get into the fun part of, I guess, the ending when it comes to being a guide. What has been some valuable lessons learned after starting and running your charter business?
I think one of the most valuable things is to just have multiple skills in my skill set in my locker that I can wheel out at any point. So, obviously surf fishing, you're pitching up somewhere within, maybe you might be able to cover a few miles of beach, but you need to be fairly certain that you're going to catch something on that stretch of beach. And so having a number of tactics in your locker to be able to approach that is definitely something I've developed. And I mean, we all have to start somewhere. And when I started guiding here, I was just very focused on leopard sharks, and I was really, really good at that. I got pretty good at that pretty fast and was able to help lots of people catch their fish. But you get to the winter and you think, well, that was fun summer. What are we going to do in the winter now? So you think, well, okay, I'm going to develop my surf perch fishing program. And so that's definitely something I've had to be conscious of, is constantly developing new skills and new kind of tactics to help my clients catch fish. And every week I learned something new, and every week I had a little tweak or a little skill set to that roster. And that means that when I go to my fishing with my clients, and maybe you're in a less than perfect situation, I don't know, maybe there's a lot of current, or you're having to deal with something that would otherwise be quite difficult, but because you've got a bit of experience and maybe a bit of knowledge, and you can think, okay, well, I know if I do this, that's going to fix that problem. So having a number of solutions to those problems, most of which involve how to catch a fish right now, would be highly, highly, very, very useful being a guide. So I think that's probably the main thing, is just making sure I can actually really catch my clients as many fish as possible. But doing so requires having a number of skills, and that might be everything from just learning how to use a tiny, tiny hook in the middle of winter to catch 20 surf perch for your very junior clients, right up to dealing with some of the light lines stuff, up to the heavy shark stuff. So having a number of skills in your locker definitely is something I'm very, very grateful I have. And also, I think being a really good people person, just having a great attitude, that's so important, isn't it? I mean, I think we touched on this earlier, didn't we, Brian? That having an attitude and then a kind of mindset and a kind of attitude that means you're going to find that fish, you're going to hunt that fish down, whatever it takes. In the next 4 or 5 hours, we're going to work it out, we're going to find them. And not being defeatist, not being, okay, well, being a bit helpless in this situation, sort of grasping the nettle, so to speak, and say, okay, well, it's not working, or this isn't working, and that's not working. So this is the plan. This is plan B. This is what we're going to do. So being quite decisive and but as well having a little bit of confidence within that to say, okay, well, clearly this isn't working, or okay, well, we've had 5 casts here, move that spot up there, it looks way better, or something like that. So having little skills and good people skills and good attitude, I think is definitely something that is one of the most important things about dealing with any sort of commercial fishing where you're helping people who want to catch fish.
Yeah, that positive mental attitude goes a long way. And I mean, you can
Oh,
be,
it's everything, isn't
you walk out to the beach with a defeatist, okay, cool, you're defeated, no problem. Guess what? You're
it?
skunking.
Yeah, you're going to have 10 casts, you're going to think this is a bit rubbish and go home. Whereas if you think 10 casts, okay, that didn't work. So what's plan B? How am I going to make this work?
Yeah.
And that's definitely, I think I gained a lot of that as well from a lot of tournament fishing when I was a kid. Teenage years doing a lot of very kind of intensive multi-hour, 5-6 hour tournaments. And then as well, I did quite a few big sort of carp fishing tournaments. I've done like 5-day endurance fishing competitions. So, when you've done that and that, you've maybe struggled with some of that very, very early stuff and think, oh God, I really didn't enjoy that last 4 or 5 hours. I was a bit helpless in that situation. How can I amend that? It's definitely helped me become a better guide, having that tournament kind of mindset of like, right, I really need to catch a fish in the next hour. What's going to do it for me? So having that skill is absolutely vital, I think, if you're a guide.
Yeah. Well, I love that you brought up the leopard shark here, because we're moving into the next portion. We're going to talk about your business, which is American
Oh, yeah.
American Sea Fishing. We're going to talk about the tackle shop side. If you go to americanseafishing.com, the first image that picks up, that's a nice little leopard shark right there. That's what that is.
Oh, that's a beautiful photo. In fact, that's such a good photo. I'm going to change that quite soon on the website, but maybe I'll leave it on there now you've mentioned it. Yeah, that's two of my really favorite clients who've now become friends, like a lot of my regular clients, like Chris and Glenn. And yeah, beautiful leopard shark. Just sums up California fishing in the summer, really, like the beautiful sunset and, leopard shark, a beautiful catch and release, kind of unique fish that you can only catch in Southern California, really. So, yeah, that's absolutely one of my favorite species, like we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, they are pretty. They are absolutely beautiful
Very
fish.
pretty. All completely unique as well. They all have unique markings, and you have ones which have a slight genetic abnormality that creates a lot of black in it, and they're called scribble sharks. And I think if you scroll down on my Instagram, I think I've got 1 or 2 of those on there, a little further down, maybe from last summer. And they get really crazy looking. That's a very standard one on the front of the website. But they get very, very crazy patterns, lots of little, almost like someone's hand drawn little hearts and smiley faces or something on it. Absolutely crazy looking fish.
Yeah, so good. All right, so let's talk about the tackle shop. So you talked about it earlier. When you came over after getting married, it was like, all right, cool. All these steps went into place: guiding business, and then now a tackle shop. All these ones. So tell me about the tackle shop and what got you into creating an online one.
Well, first of all, I worked for a tackle company back in England before I moved over. Did that for a couple of years and was marketing manager, media manager. So I kind of had a little background in the tackle industry business, and was also a tackle tester for a couple of fishing magazines. So I was always very, very interested in tackle and developing tackle, and that whole process of, developing something that helps someone catch fish. It's a kind of a nice process. So when I came over here, started the guiding business, and very quickly I realized that in England, you could go to the standard fishing shop and buy all of the stuff that I needed to make a decent rig. And maybe not quite the wire, the exact brand of wire, but a lot of the other stuff would be very easy to get. Whereas you go into a fishing tackle shop here, and it was nearly impossible. Like I remember trying to buy bait elastic, or people call it magic thread, bait thread, whatever, your latest elastic. You cannot buy that in a fishing tackle shop at that time. When I came over, I probably tried 5 or 6 tackle shops, and they looked at you like, what? You want like rigging thread? You want like that kind of wax thread they use for like rigging like ballyhoo or something like that? Nope. So very quickly realized that there's a market there for slightly niche surf fishing tackle, which is I guess what I mainly specialize in, niche saltwater tackle, of things like the very specific brand of circle hooks that I like, the pulley rigs that I use for a lot of the leopard sharks, and just probably 20 things like that are completely unique. And for example, another one is that you can't go into a tackle shop here and buy like an 8 ounce spiked Sputnik surf sinker. So you cannot buy that at all in a tackle shop. And if you go any sort of like significant shark fishing here, any sort of current, you're going to need at least 8 ounce wired surf sinker. So again, you can't buy that here. So again, a little gap in the market, spotted that, and now we sell loads and loads of really lovely, really nicely made sinkers with a choice to have them made in China or have them made in America. So whatever price point you want to go for, I've got a sinker to sell you. So that's definitely the driving point of that business, is realizing very quickly that there was not a lot of really good surf and saltwater inshore tackle You could buy all the tuna fishing tackle, you could buy like Wahoo lures, all of the stuff like that in the tackle shop, but you couldn't buy, for example, a I don't know, maybe the exact brand of hook that I really liked. Maybe some slightly sort of cheaper sort of low quality steel hooks, a bit bendy, bit blunt for my liking. But the bait elastic is a good one, really. I use that loads for shark fishing, and I could not buy at all. I had to import it from somewhere else when I first came over here, and very quickly you realise, well, I use a lot of that, and a lot of people do as well. So let's start a business based on that idea that we're filling a market, which clearly there's a niche, and we're going to help a load of people catch fish, because this is all the stuff that I use in my guiding business as well. So it's not stuff that I've just sort of randomly come across. It's something that I've used for at least a few months or a year or two, and have a lot of confidence in, and then bring it to market and bring it to my customers and my lovely clients as well.
Well, you got a lot of fun stuff on here. I mean, so I've been looking at it, and there's stuff I've never seen.
Like what?
Yeah, in
Tell me, I'm
particular,
interested.
the non-return rig sliders and rig ring.
Oh yeah.
Never seen
So
this before. This is interesting. Tell me about that.
Yes, in California, a lot of people enjoy catching sharks and piers, and there's a big scene of catching of pier fishing here. You don't need a fishing license to fish from a pier, which is obviously attractive to a lot of people, and it's a relatively easy prospect to chuck a bait out. And how those sliders work is you're gonna first of all rig up a rod, preferably with mono, like straight mono, maybe 30-pound mono or something, 40-pound mono, and you're just going to tie a sinker to the end of that and launch that out with maybe a casting leader on the end, and maybe 80-pound casting leader. And so you're going to launch that sinker out off the end of your pier, and then what you do is you clip on, so you can thread by that kind of if you look on the non-return sliders, they have a kind of spiral metal section at the top, and using that section you can thread that onto your main line by looping it round, so it's running on the main line like a slider. So you cast out, wait till your sinker's really kind of stuck in place, so you use a big wide surf sinker, and then thread that little spiral metal section onto the line, so it's sliding up and down, and then you clip on your rig, and your rig slides out. And if you're fishing for a thresher shark, you fish a rig, quite a big float rig, so you fish it on the top with a bait suspended, fresh mackerel on a 6.0 hook, 6.0 Mutsu circle extra. You spend that about 10 feet below the surface, and if you're fishing for maybe a leopard or a soup fin or something else hard on the bottom, you don't use a float rig, you just use a straight shark leader, 6-7 foot leader, and again slide that down, hits the bottom, or floats if you're using the float, and you just wait for that to start rattling. I think they use relatively similar things for some of the pier fishing for some of the sharks in Florida, but I think maybe they use like what they call a trolley system, which is kind of almost like two rods, and one holds the sinker and has a little kind of clip on it, and the other one has the live bait, which you slide out on the clip attached to the other rod, and when the fish hits it, the little clip pops out. So I've got a few of those, but over here it's much more about the dead bait fishing with the small mackerel, for the threshers, the leopards, soup fin, seven gill, stuff like that off the pier. And yeah, the way you do that, big sinker out there, clip your slider on, slide your big bait out, and you can get it out way further than you would do if you're just trying to cast that big bait with that awkward float leader on there. So that's how they get used here, and you get a weighted version if you want to hit the bottom, or a non-weighted version if you're fishing at the top, and that's really the only difference. So they're kind of useful thing for deploying a big bait off the beach for a decent sized fish, like a shark or a ray.
Yeah, I can definitely see that now after you explain it. That makes a lot of sense. And you get some really cool other, you got a couple of really nice examples for a couple of your double dropper and your single dropper, especially when you're talking about the rockfish. If you take a look at it on the website, folks, you'll notice the sinker is not a Sputnik. It's a nice cylinder style, basically no edges, because, if your sinker gets into rocks, guess what? And you got something that stops it, it's not letting go.
Also a lot cheaper to leave those in a rock in a pile of rock 600 feet down than it is to leave a Sputnik.
Yes.
Sinker down all the way down there. Those things are so much cheaper. And also they have the nice hydrodynamic shape where they're just going to fall down nice and fast. And it's got the double ring, so, clip it on. You can use it as a trolling sinker, but most of the time over here they get used for the deep drop stuff. I mean, I hosted a rockfish trip up in Ventura. It's a little further north of here, up in April. And we're using 32-ounce sinkers up there, fishing 600 feet of water, which is kind of a unique thing for that. So you do have to use a really, really big sinker, hence those rigs. That sinker clip's a big old clip, but there's a reason for that, and it's because of those giant sinkers, or sometimes a jig involved as well.
That's smart. And I do love that you added for your bullet floats, you added a sand camouflage paint job.
Those are a big, really interesting product, actually, and the big seller, actually. I've sold quite a few to guys in Florida, and other places because some seems to be a fairly unique thing that we make. So and actually they're based really how those came about because those corbina, when we're fishing for the corbina in very shallow water, having watched sight fish for them a lot and watched them feed, they're incredibly spooky. And anything that looks unnatural in the water, they're very, very quick to just move off and just not interested at all. And they've probably also been pressured. They've been caught maybe a couple of times. So anything that goes in my favor when I'm fishing for those, I'm very interested in. That whole marginal gains theory is something I'm very keen on, and definitely with the sand camo sinkers, it definitely I'd say has had a positive effect in terms of they don't seem to spook off them. I've watched them; they just seem to just look at it like a bit of rock or sand. Whereas if you have a very shiny, one of those very shiny sinkers, real bright metal ones bouncing down, they definitely seem to suss out a little faster. And I notice the catch rate with my clients when I can really look at it from fishing with 3 people over a morning. The ones who have the more subtle tackle always do better. And definitely those sand camo sinkers are based on the wet sand from my local favorite Corbina beach, which I have a guy made specially to match that exact wet sand of that exact beach. So they're a pretty precise product, but they're pretty. I think a lot of people have use for those if they're fishing over sand for wary fish. So yeah, sell a nice amount of those. They're an interesting product.
It is. I mean, especially so it's great that I see this now because it's part of something I've been going through my head with a lot of things and talking with guys here in our local area. This time of year it's hard fishing for us here in Florida during the summer, especially June, July, August. We got June grass and it's the sludge stuff. It's never fun. But then you start looking at the temperature, the fish are going to be more finicky. They're going to be a little bit more lockjaw because now they're expending energy or they're holding their energy because they're too hot, too cold, whatever it may be, between summer and winter. So you have to downsize your tackle, which you're normally throwing a 15 pound, 20 pound double dropper out there. And you're like, oh, okay, I'll be fine. Doesn't work right now because the fish are not playing in the game. So you have to downsize even further. So hiding your sinker in the sand is always a challenge. I mean, it doesn't matter what you throw, whether you throw Sputniks or pyramids, it's still there. It can be seen. But that's a nice little ad. So very well played and great job with your research that helped you see that and rolled through. Well done indeed, sir. Well done indeed.
Thank you. I mean, but what you've just said is exactly what I think about things like marginal gains theory. About if you can find 10 things in your tackle in your setup that are going to make even the 1% difference at the end of the season, that's going to have probably caught you another 20 fish, maybe, for example. And those 20 fish within that might be like the real trophy pompano. For me, it might be like a really big client caught Corbina or something like that. And that. So I think if you can work out another 20 things that you can do better, even if it's a tiny, tiny little thing, like maybe using a micro swivel instead of one of those big brass swivels, or using the sand camo sinker instead of a big shiny, lead one. Just tiny little things like that, I think, can make a big difference. And like I said, when you're fishing for pressured fish in maybe difficult situations, you want to take all your chances, right? You don't want to have anything negative in that setup. And if you can just work out the 20 things, 10, 20 things that are going to get you over that hump of being that guy who stands on the beach with a cooler full of fish as opposed to the guy skunking, then that's a huge thing. And what you just said about the subtlety, I think, is a big factor, especially when it gets to this time of year, like here as well. A lot of pressured fish, everyone's fishing for them. I'm using smaller hooks now, 4 6 pound fluorocarbon leaders, so just to get that little edge over everyone else. It's not because I enjoy fishing like line, it's because that's the most effective way to do it right now.
Yeah, hey, you got to do what you got to do to win. And
absolutely,
I had a great conversation with my buddy Justin from Justin Reed Fishing. For those you guys know, you guys know we're always together when we're fishing. He's my fishing buddy out here, and that's just how we always roll. The fun piece we had a conversation on a couple weeks ago was we were downsizing tackle, and people were talking about, oh, it's not heavy, it's too light for fish. And it got me thinking about, I used to scuba dive a lot as a kid, and friends of ours are scuba divers. When you're underwater, that 20-pound fish doesn't weigh 20 pounds. That pound thing doesn't matter. Now, when they're swimming, now you got thrust ratio. Now you're talking about weight versus what he's pulling on the line. So you can get, you see these people catching fish on 6-pounder, like, how'd you do it? That's a 30-pound fish. It's not about what the fish weighs. It's about how you manipulate. That drag is what's going to give you that separation. So, you think you're pulling in a 30-pound fish through that water while they're thrusting away with 40 pounds of thrust to get away from you. In reality, you're not stopping them. You're slowing them down. So that 6-pound is still within its realm. Hey, it's kind of about time for a bait check, don't you think? Yeah, we should probably do that. This bait check is being brought to you by DS Custom Tackle. That's right, the Delaware Surf Fishing team up there. Lots of good stuff on DelawareSurfFishing.com. Maybe you need some rigs, got you covered. Or if you're tying your own rigs and you're looking for a supplier, hey, they're one of those companies that can do that. They can help you out, get you outfitted for all the stuff you need to build it. Lots of really cool floats are coming out. I am absolutely in love with the sand flea that glows in the dark. You can also find that on the BS Surf Fishing. That's Barry's rig. Really good double dropper. There's other rigs available for different types of fishing, jigs, terminal tackle, you name it. There's a lot of great things on there, and they've got you covered. So dscustomtackle.com, go over to the website, take a look, get your order in. You won't be sorry. Great stuff. So you don't have to go with this big ass poundage, really. And like you just said, downsizing it even lower, and you're still nailing it. I think people overthink that when they're in the tackle shop. They're like, oh, I need 30 pound. I need that for this fish. It's like, no, slow down on your thoughts there. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think refinement is a huge factor, and definitely, I'm definitely prone to fishing heavier than I should do maybe sometimes because I'm
Same.
always conscious of. I mean, like when you have that guiding mentality of like, okay, I want every single fish that I hook, my client hooks to hit the beach, but at the same time, there's a balance of, you know, I can't put them on the situation where, in fact, this goes back to maybe another guiding lesson is putting clients in situations where they maybe not going to have a great outcome of maybe you're playing a fish in 4 pound for some of my maybe, and someone who isn't an amazing angler, someone who's just starting out, maybe fish on that kind of 3 and 4 pound line is definitely a different, more jeopardy, way more jeopardy than a fish on 6, 7, 8 pound line, for example. So the finding your kind of sweet spot within that and your ability and matching your kit to the exact, brand of line that you've got, and that make sure that line does it, you break it, whatever it says. We had one fishing a light line tournament earlier this year and the 4 pound maximum line. Lucky we checked our alleged 4 pound fluoro that breaks it really at 5, and you start having to use 3 and 4 pound lines. So knowing your products, knowing what you're going to fish with, adding refinement into that, and building up a kind of reliable repertoire of, like you said, about the 6 pound setup. So what is your 6 pound setup? What is your brand of line that you trust? What is the knot? By the way, Palomar knots are absolute king as far as I'm concerned right now.
Yeah,
All
same.
the light line stuff. Yeah, I can't. It just does. It's incredibly simple, isn't it? It looks like it shouldn't be as strong as it is, but they just don't go wrong. It's always another bit in something else in the system. If it breaks, it really does. But if it is, it always seems to be another something else in the system that breaks. Never the Palomar knot, which is kind of interesting. Do you
Yeah.
are you a snelling guy, Brian? You snell
No,
your hooks?
I do for my mortician rigs. I will
Okay.
snell them that way, but 9 times out of 10, no, I'm either a Palomar knot guy or for the loop, obviously the loop down through and pull. But yeah, no, normally
Yeah.
it's a Palomar.
Well, I was Palomar not on the hook guy for a while, and I think I've recently come across something that's maybe but fall into that marginal gains category of maybe a little edge. Because when I look at how the fish feed in the shallow water here, and especially when there's a bit of current, they're feeding similar to a trout. Maybe they're kind of staging up current, they're looking up current, and they're picking off at stuff as it comes down current. And I figure the dynamic I want for my client is they're bouncing that sinker down the current, and as it almost like a streamer fishing a trout with a stream with a trout. And as that streamer or that sinker kind of flows around, kind of goes around that arc and that current, and that fish just snatches it and moves off. That snell knot, I think, really helps that hook situate into the corner of the mouth and just turns. And I've noticed that when I've been snelling my knots recently, snelling my hooks recently, so many of the fish are now, as opposed to being hooked maybe a little bit further back in the mouth, which you do find with those croaker here. They're so many of them are hooked right in the corner of the mouth, like almost like a circle hook. And so I figure that snell connection creates a kind of circle hook situation of a kind of rounded finish on that hook. And then when the fish picks up that bait, like a trout with a streamer, and just moves off, as it moves off, it ties up to that sinker, and that hook pulls around to the corner of the mouth and then just situates in the corner of there because it hasn't got that little knot right at the top to sort of bounce it out. And that snell knot, that line leads that hook into that corner of that mouth. And as they move off, you just get that lovely rod loads up and you've got fish on, don't even need to set the hook. And that's something definitely I've been using the last few weeks, and I think is a gained me maybe, might have only caught me one extra fish, but that extra fish might have been that 22-inch corbina for my client the other week, or it might have been the number 4 of our 4 fish day yesterday, which turned out really well. So look, and again, a little tiny little thing like that. I was kind of interested to see how you might figure on that because I know a lot of
Yeah.
guys who do the sword fishing tunery type stuff do a lot of snelling of their circle hooks. So it was kind of a little nod from them maybe led me to that path.
Hey, yeah, I could see exactly what you're saying there. Yeah, that I could see that working because that's a straight pull. The only problem I ran into early with my Snell game was the tag end. I was clipping it. I was clipping it short, like I was told to, but in the surf, for me, when the water was rolling, uh, for some reason, after I did it, I lost about 6 or 7 fish, and I was like, "What the hell
Oh,
is going on here?" But what it had turned out is though the Snell is nice and tight, as the wave was moving and moving the bait, it was actually pushing the main line for the Snell in, and it was loosening
oh
the
yeah.
coils just a little bit enough for the tag end to slide back. So
Oh,
that was a fun
okay.
lessons learned of a yeah that sucks. So I left the tag end a little bit longer, and the tag end's really not going to do much. It's you can hide it in bait, whatever it may be. But yeah, after that happened, I was like, yeah, I'm going back to the Palomar for a little while.
I'm surprised. Well, there's actually the knot I've ended up using isn't technically a snell knot. It's what we call it in England a knotless knot. So if you just anyone looks up knotless knot, you'll see exactly the knot I've been using, and I've had zero problems with that. No unwrapping, no coming loose. 'Cause I know what you mean. It is something that if it's not exactly sitting right, it can come undone a little bit, and if it's loose, it can potentially unwrap. But this knotless knot with only 2 or 3 wraps back up the shank, or the format I've done so far, which has worked really well for me, is size 8 hook, 12 to 13 turns down the hook, 2 or 3 back up, and then through the eye. And haven't had a single failure with that. In fact, actually, the other week, when I probably the first few times I used that, one of the first times I used that, I hooked an absolutely what I assume was a really big bat ray on my light gear. And it was probably foul hooked in the wing or something, but I was probably on that thing for like 20 minutes. And it got to the point where I was physically trying to bust it off, and I couldn't bust it off on 6 pound, which that thing was going to spool me. I was going to be on that thing for hours, and eventually the hook pulled out, and I physically tried to bust it off, and all I would do was just dragging it closer to shore. That's how strong a connection that was. So I
Yeah.
was pretty happy with that. So knotless knot is the one you want if you're going to snell light gear. Pretty reliable, pretty easy thing to do.
Yeah, I'm gonna go that route because I fully and I told everybody like, hey, no, snell your knots. This was a Brian screwed it up thing. I fully accepted my failure on that, but the knotless, I will definitely take a look at that and probably move into that
Yeah,
game. That makes
because
a lot
the
more
snell
sense.
knot is hard. A pure snell knot is actually quite difficult, I think, to
Probably,
make.
it probably is.
Mm.
Anyway. I admit my failures. We're gonna move on from my failures, and
Okay.
so as I was playing on the website, I also love that you have write ups, lots of blog pieces and articles, lots of good ones. And if you guys are into the
Yep.
surf games, there is a great article you wrote, surf fishing, all the things that beginner surf anglers get wrong, tide structures,
Yeah.
rig and baits, because in reality, when everyone starts. I can't say everyone. It's a very large game where people in our world will go to YouTube and they will follow the YouTubers and they will follow some of the other websites. They'll follow Salt Strong, all these pieces to kind of get into the game. But there are so many other pieces that we get wrong because we don't see the minute details that are in the building. Your article here really broke it down, and really, I'm very impressed with it. When I read it, I was like, damn, yep, all these ones with app pictures and everything. You spent some good time on this, so I wanted to say, well, very well done, sir. Thank you for writing
Thank
this
you.
up. Yep, you know it. It's time for another bait check. This bait check is being brought to you by the Kids Can Fish Foundation. You guys, I can't say enough great things about what they do. I really love it. Kidscanfish.net's the website. Head on over there and go ahead and see all these camps and programs that they were doing for getting kids out fishing. I mean, they're taking these camps or these kids into these camps to teach them how to fish in the surf, how to throw lines, or how to throw cast nets. So many different pieces all put together. And they're able to do this from your donations. All the money that they make goes right back into the camp, and they're building this up for the kids. Upcoming is the St. Simon's Island Running of the Bulls tournament in October. I'll be there. A lot of the other guys here in the Panhandle, they're coming with me, or I'm going with them, depending on how you look at it. I'm just going to be there, man. I'm I'm excited. But we're all going to get together. We're going to fish. We're going to have a great time. It is all put together because of them, and I'm very thankful. And all the money that goes to that gets thrown back out there for the kids to continue on with these camps. Really fun. So kidscanfish.net. You won't be you are going to help somebody if you jump in on that. You really are. And I love their slogan. It's not official, but I still love it. More tackle boxes, less X boxes. That's phenomenal.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of those articles are born out of things that I see on my day-to-day fishing and when I'm guiding clients. And there's always some consistent themes that I find people struggle with. So it's really just helping people address all those problems. And like I said, often they'll have 9 out of 10 things they'll do exactly right, exactly the right rig and set up and right tide, right time of day, perfect, everything else. But then they'll bring the biggest pile of junk, frozen squid they've had in the bottom of their bag for a year or something. So, something like that. So often it's just one or two little things you've got to help people out with, and you send them off in the right direction. It changes the game completely. So I think people reading that, I think that's actually is the most popular page on my website, or the most popular article on my website right now. Probably because lots of people out there surf fishing and thinking, oh God, why isn't this happening for me? Why aren't I getting that lovely big croaker or something, or that big surf perch? And this is really aiming to help people address all of those little tactical nuances I think that they need to address in order to have a successful session.
Definitely there. All right. So with you've got an online shop, not brick and mortar for people to drive to. Your website says, hey, look, contact you, and it's all good there.
Yep.
What do you feel that a reason that people that come to the area don't go to the local tackle shops to get their gear versus maybe a big box store? Hey, I'm going to go to Walmart, or I can go to the local. Why do you think that is? People don't just jump in on going to the local shop versus the big boys.
I think some of definitely when you go to a local tackle shop here, they're always in quite odd locations. They're always in a kind of strip mall next to between a pizza place and something else. So they're not often that incredibly visible, are they? If you're driving along the freeway in California, you'll see like the Big Five store, and maybe there's a Dick's Sporting Goods, and if you're out in the central in Rancho Cucamonga, there's Bass Pro, and so you can go there, you could buy a license, and you could buy everything. Most of it's fairly useless for a lot of the very specific surf and saltwater stuff, but you've got that visibility. So if you're just driving along or looking for a shop, most of the ones that are going to be within the easily accessible places are the big box stores. But whereas I think if you look into some of the more local stuff, there's the value that they can offer you in terms of the local advice and the I don't know. I just really love going to tackle shops. I mean, it's just they're all absolute emporiums of stuff that I can just look at for hours and hours and hours, and I'll always learn some stuff. Always spend too much money. So that's probably a good reason is you get that experience of going to a tackle shop and being like, oh my God, I just want to spend about 4 hours walking up and down here, versus when you go into the standard Walmart type, Big Five, it's more like, okay, I just need to get my thing and get out of here. So there's a little different experience, and the person at the counter isn't going to go, oh, how are you doing? Where you're fishing? Oh, great. Well, maybe you should try here. Or did you think about buying this? This bait's worked really well yesterday. That local advice could be a real game changer. And, definitely my local tackle shop. So shout out to Shark Baits. They're always very much dialed into that kind of local knowledge. And they're always, whenever I send clients there, they always send me a text afterwards, goes, oh my God, those guys are so helpful. He told me exactly where to go, and he made sure I bought exactly the right thing. And, so I really like that. A good local tackle shop is absolutely invaluable in my experience. And they are the source for all of the good stuff, all of the good knowledge, good licenses as well. And all of the good tackle that you want to buy, not the kind of big box, whatever the local buyer for the big box store has decided to stock in that store. It's the stuff that they know will work and sell.
Yeah, and the Walmart, person's not gonna ever try to find a way to help you. The sale is done.
Almost feels like the opposite of when you're in there.
Yeah. Our local one, because we're very fortunate here. We have several tackle shops very close to the beach, so we've got it in that one out in Cali. For those of you who've never been to Cali, anything beachfront or close to the water is triple. There's nothing cheap about that. The coastal area, it's very painful for that. But but like I walk into Walmart and I'll see people come in from out of town and they're like, oh yeah, I just got some rods, and I'm like, oh, what'd you get? Oh, that's a nice pen rod. Okay, cool, that's good. Why didn't you go to the local shop? Oh, there's a local shop? Yeah, then they're going to spool that line for free for you too. You
Yeah.
you're going to have to do all this. So, yeah,
But also,
it's rough.
they're going to sell you the 8 or 9 foot surf rod in the tackle shop, which
Yeah.
is actually going to be really, really good and really useful. Whereas when my experience, we go to like the average Walmart type big box store, a lot of their stuff it's the 7 foot. It's like the ready-made combos. You know, there's
Yep.
combos that just come that are like universally sold, and it's always a 7 foot. It always seems to be 7 foot spinning rods with a 4,000 size reel, and you're probably going to end up loaded with some junky mono, and maybe that'll catch you a few fish, but that's pretty far from optimal in my opinion. So
Mm.
yeah, different experience definitely.
Yeah, the big box store is my so I've got a new technique and I'll share it here on the show because it's been kind of my new fun thing. I always shop at my local shops. My number one shop that is my closest to me is Half Hitch. I'm always in there. I'm talking with the managers. I know the gear they have, and I never can complain about any of it. If they don't have it, then I'll run down to Emerald Coast, bait and tackle down the road. But one thing I've been doing lately is sometimes stalking the big box store's clearance aisle. I picked up a $500 reel for $120.
Really, what was it?
It was, oh my gosh, which one? It was the pen.
Please tell me.
It was the pen. Damn it. Of course, my friggin' brain doesn't work right now. It was one of the high speed, low speed drop reels.
Uh,
Like a conventional.
like a big Fathom, or
Yeah,
big international, or
yeah. I think it was a
big Fathom,
Fathom.
or
I believe it was a Fathom.
oh, nice,
And it
nice.
was like, oh wow, holy crap, this is a great deal because they were clearing out last year's section, right? They're getting rid of last year's to bring in this year's, and it was a steal. Then they had, Walmart had another one where they had a depth finder for kayaks, which was, I think it was a Garmin system that was normally 600 down to 250. So it was like,
Nice.
stalking the big box stores for those kinds of deals. Your local tackle shop's not going to be mad at you. They're not even,
No,
they're going to be like,
no.
yeah, well, give me the link. I'm going to buy that for me. So using that, but going to your local shop for all the things that are there, especially when you're traveling, the local shops, if you just put local tackle shop near me in your phone, and you're going to find them. But going to your local ones that way, like you said, they're going to give you all the knowledge, and they're not going to upsell you. They're going to help you get fish because they know if
Yeah.
you catch,
If
you're coming
anything,
back tomorrow.
they hurt themselves by being so honest. And I'll give you a really nice example of this, which makes me really want to go to this tackle shop. Is that one of my regular clients? He wanted to get himself kitted out with a rod and reel, and he went to the tackle shop, and they had the reel but not the rod, and they refused to sell him the reel because they didn't want him to buy a rod that didn't balance with the reel. So they refused to sell him a $350 reel, which presumably they'd have made a nice margin on, because they just didn't want him to be in a kind of position where he might buy less than suitable rod at this in another store. So that to me is like unbelievable customer service, where you're foregoing a significant profit just to make sure this guy is going to be in a really good spot with his tackle. So 10
Yeah.
out of 10 for that store. I think it was Island Fishing Tackle in Orange, I think, or it's very similar name to that, I think, from what he told me. So yeah, shout out to them, man. Respect to that store for making that kind of call and customer service.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Wow, I'm impressed. Good job, you
Yeah,
guys. Happily linking that
it's
one.
impressive,
I'll
isn't
make sure it's the right one and link it back. It'll be on the website.
it? I will find out and I'll send you a text, because
Perfect.
I was so impressed when I read that. And of course, you can go to he went to the next store and they had everything and they bought everything there. But that same, and I was just thought that's a really nice touch. That means they're in it for the right reasons, I think, and
Yeah,
that's a good way to build a business long term.
definitely. So, like I said, you've got a lot of great things on your website, and people, by
Thank
all
you.
means, take a look. There's plenty of cool stuff to use, and lots of fun stuff that you can utilize anywhere with knowledge on the website for helping you do good. And if you're out in Cali, for my Cali listeners, because I know some of you are out there, one of them being Dwayne. You need to be out fishing. My buddy from Canceled for Maintenance podcast, he's out there doing his thing, but he hasn't fished enough. And I said, you need to get out to this website because I found your site and I sent it to him. He's like, I need to buy this. I need to buy this. I need to buy this. I'm like, yes, you do. So let's get to this last question in this category, and then we'll get down to the closing and get you out of here. What have been
Of
some
course.
valuable lessons learned about the tackle industry that helped you with the current setup that you're in?
Oh goodness. There's so many things that I've learned the last 2 or 3 years. It's, a lot of very boring businessy taxi type things. Goodness, trying to think about some more of the more interesting fishing things. Um, this is such I think everything is such a learning process. This is such a all-encompassing question, and that I'm always learning when I'm running this business every day. I'm learning something. But I think I think an overall lesson I take from my recent experience, definitely, particularly this year, is the more I can help people catch stuff, the easier it becomes to sell them tackle, and the better my tackle is, the easier that sale becomes. And obviously it sounds kind of obvious, but I need to really make sure my stuff works. And if I sell someone a leopard shark rig, if I just send them a packet with a wire leader in it, well, great, that's one thing. But I've now, in the last year or so, introduced, for example, on my packaging is a QR code, and you zap the QR code, and it takes you to the tip section of my website, which has a load of videos and a load of articles, and it's all the stuff that directly relates to how that product works. And how that product works is something that I've probably been working on for like 2 or 3 years, and I've probably blueprinted it several times and torn it up and thought, okay, well, that's not going to quite work like that. And I've probably changed that hook 5 times to the perfect pattern. So probably the overall lesson I've taken from the tackle industry is the more I help people, the more successful my business gets, and the more outrageous customer service I provide, which is something I've listened to a podcast about some customer facing business a few months ago, and the guy said one of his main thing is to just provide outrageous customer service, which is, so that's what I do. I will literally email my clients after I know they've received their rigs, or when they're about to receive their rigs, and say, hey, any problems, any questions, any tips, please just send me a message. Where are you going fishing? How can I help you? I'll tell them, oh, great. Well, great. You want to catch a leopard shark and you live in, I don't know, San Diego, and I've just sent you a rig. Great. Well, here's a great beach to go and do that. And also on the back of that packaging is a QR code. It's going to be a video about how to mount the bait on that rig. Also, there's an article about how to use the rig. And there's, probably 20 ways I can help you, which I've developed in the last year to help catch a fish. So I think that's probably my biggest lesson, is going the extra mile of helping people catch a fish, to differentiate myself from anybody else who's doing the similar thing in any other tackle shop, which might sell you a similar rig, but they're not going to have the extra advice. They're not going to have like a personal touch of service like I'm going to really try and give my clients and my customers. And if one of my customers bought a rig and picks up their phone the next day and just wants to talk about, I know, like a leopard shark fishing session, or how to catch a big soup fin or something like that, I'll absolutely do that, no problem at all. That's always a pleasure for me to help people along that same path. So yeah, outrageous customer service is probably my main lesson in both my guiding and my tackle business.
That's perfect, and so good on you right there, because that information, like you just said right there, that email, that message, that video link, that text, all that, you're encompassing all the learners, the video, the audio learner, the video learner, or the visual learner, the kinesthetic learner. You nailed them all. So that's phenomenal,
Yeah.
that you've done that, and that probably helps more people than anyone can really think of. So very
Yeah,
well
and
done
also I
on
figure
that.
if I help that guy when he's on the beach, he's going to tell another 5 guys, probably 2, 3, 4 guys. That old marketing thing of, if someone has a great experience with your company or brand, they're going to probably tell 6 or 7 people about that great experience. So I think that's a great way to build a business. And like I was saying earlier about that tackle shop, I've just told you about that tackle shop who helped out my client by not selling them a reel. And I was so impressed by that. I've told you about that. So that's a great example, isn't it? Of like, they haven't even made any money out of us, but yet we've still talked about them because they provided outrageous customer service.
Yeah. Yeah, that train runs very well, and it
Yeah,
always
for
does.
sure.
And we're helping people. That's all. That's what we're in. We're in the game to
Yeah,
help people, man.
yeah. Solving puzzles and helping people solve that same puzzle is the
Yeah.
thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. All right, so let's get you into the closing questions here and get you out for the day. What knowledge would you give to a brand new angler starting out in the surf game?
Oh, I'd say learn about tides, learn about tide cycles, learn about how those work. I probably haven't had a client like this for for a couple of years, but I've had clients before who've haven't realised there's such thing as a tide. They think the wind drives the water in, and then when the wind stops blowing, the water goes out. So learning about tides, learning about tide cycles and how that relates to moon cycles, and how that relates, if you fish in California, how that relates to grunion runs, and then looking at working out those peak times to go fishing. It's probably one of the major things. Another one thing is get really good at tying really good Palomar knots, or a uni knot. One of those two is probably going to be the thing you're going to tie a lot. Don't tie your granddad's like fishing knot, that block knot or clinch knot. Most of the time that goes wrong. I've seen that happen a lot. People who just thought, oh, I'll just tie this quick knot rather than take the time to tie a really good Palomar. and then the next fish goes pop, and it's always on that same poor chunky knot. So yeah, get good at knots, get good at reading tides, get good at castings. You'd be very surprised the amount of people who say, "Oh yeah, I fished all my life and I've done this type of fishing and that type of fishing," and you give them a spinning rod and you say, "Okay, great, well, just cast over there, sir." And they really can't do it. They cannot cast properly. They've got all these weird techniques, and they just a bit off. So if you just can't cast, go and stand in a field, and get the gear you're going to be fishing with a lot. Go and stand in a field, put a hoop 30 meters away, and just cast at that hoop for an hour until you've got it absolutely dialed in. In fact, there's a really good casting video on my website, so I'm not trying to promote that anymore, but there is a really good casting video. I had to dial out a load of light line casting issues, so that might help a few people. So I think that's really, get good at casting, get good at understanding the tides and the saltwater environment. Of course, understand all the species you're going to be fishing for, and be very focused. Maybe as well, probably the best lesson in all of that. Be very focused on what you want to do. Don't just go, "Oh, well, I'm going to go surf fishing today and I want to catch everything." Just saying, "Okay, well, today I'm going to, my first surf fishing session, I'm going to try and catch a surf perch, which would probably be the best way to do it. These are the things I'm going to need to do that, and these are the things about that species that I know, and these are the things I can research and learn about that species, and then I can start to form a plan." And I'm sure, like you, Brian, you have this probably thing which I called an equation in my head of all these factors that go into the surf fishing session and go into a successful day. And there's a whole load of stuff, of environmental stuff and weather, tides, marine cycles, species, water temperature, bait. And so if you start to develop that equation in your brain of all those input factors, and when the output is a fish, you think, okay, well, which of those factors worked and which of those ones didn't, which of those were important and which ones were least important. And then you begin to develop a sort of program for yourself and develop that technique and develop that equation about how to catch a fish, which is, I guess, what it's all about, isn't it? So yeah, it's a big subject, but that's probably the broad strokes is what I suggest to people, is those are the things to get really good at once you've got into the initial, this is a rod and reel, this is how that works kind of thing.
I'm glad you brought up the casting thing. And I mean this the nicest way when I say it to you people. There is a major difference in cast distance from bass fishing, which you're using that flick of the wrist and that little bit, versus the surf rod, which you are pulling with your left arm. It makes a big difference. And trying to cast a 12-foot rod like you would a bass rod, you're not going to get the outcome you think you would.
No. And also we have the added thing of having to use a lot of the light line gear here. So we're using like 8.6 and 9'6" rods, and using like a 3/4 ounce sinker often. And there's definitely a very particular technique for casting that. And if you try to do the bassy, super fast, kind of like whippy, just power it as though you're like flicking something under a dock, then that also sometimes doesn't go quite so well. So there's definitely some subtleties in that. But I mean, it's like any sort of fishing, isn't it? You go from bass fishing to casting for, I don't know, foaming tuna offshore, to casting a 3-ounce surf sinker on the beach. There's all different techniques, aren't they? There's basically the same thing, but with probably some significant subtleties between the lot. So getting used to casting, like you said, there's probably two things about. There's probably the first one, the one that you mentioned, the 12-foot rod, the longer surf rod with a bigger 3-ounce sinker, and then there's the lighter surf gear, which is maybe more similar to a kind of bass style casting. But yeah, but either way, just getting used to your gear and getting used to being good at casting, getting that sinker out in a straight line, getting it landing nicely. So so it's one of the things I try and teach my clients is about feeling that sinker down and just trapping that line before that sinker hits the water, so that leader lays out nicely, which is a technique you see a lot of those bass guys use when they're using Carolina rigs, or just trying to get a line, kind of get that line straightened out before it hits the water. So yeah, just things like that. Just all subtleties can figure into all those subtleties can figure into much better fishing sessions. If you can cast accurately 5 yards further than you could last week because you've been practicing, that might catch you that extra 1 or 2 fish that sit a little bit further out, or that extra accuracy might get you into that little depth of water, right into that hole, or right just upstream of that hole, bounce. It's perfect scenario bouncing into that face of that fish. So yeah, that's probably, like you said, it's probably a bigger factor than a lot of people realize, isn't it? They think, oh, casting's casting, I just go down there, chuck it out, and something will happen. Yeah, but there's also, you can really up your chances significantly by being better at that.
Yeah. The fish like to play in different zones, so just
Yeah,
we'll get you there. We'll get you there.
Yeah.
What?
Just a nice smooth casting. That's kind of a good casting, smooth casting technique. It's all quite personal, isn't it? But just practicing that, just going and practicing. just go and do it. If you're rubbish at, go and do it. Don't
Yeah.
be practicing on the beach when it really matters. Be practicing in the middle of the day when there's nothing happening tide wise and you've got a couple of hours free. Go and do it then.
Perfect. Definitely put. All right. So, what do you think has been a reason for such the surge to surf fishing?
I think there's obviously always been a surf fishing culture in California. I mean, when I came from England, obviously we had a huge beach and surf fishing culture with our coastline, the epic long rocky coastline we have. So I was kind of aware of this, but it's definitely a different surf fishing culture over here. And I think the things that drive people to go surf fishing here are a few different things. Maybe maybe the food aspect is certain for has always been there, but now I think the sporting aspect has become really common. And I think one recent factor is obviously the COVID stuff, and I noticed a definite increase in people looking to get out with their families after COVID. Kind of had a little period of being locked up maybe a little bit, and thought, okay, well, this isn't fun. What is going to be the most fun outdoor kind of sporting thing I can do with my family? And you arrive at things like fishing, which is really fun. So I think a lot of I've seen a lot of families come into it, and helped quite a few families get rigged up and buy their own combos, and now they're off doing it on their own after 3 or 4 sessions. They've got it all dialed in. So I think that's a big factor. People are just more into doing outdoor stuff as well, which I really like. I really appreciate that. And I think this year in particular, I've seen a real surge in definitely the last 2 months of people being very interested in that. I think it's a big factor for us this year is the water temperature. That's really crept up, and we're having 70-degree water, which is the first time we've had that in probably 2 or 3 years, I think, in my experience. So people are seeing that water temperature. They're seeing a lot of the fish being caught, and they're thinking, great, I want a piece of that action. And they're hitting me up for lessons and tuitions and just fun family sessions. So I think that's a big factor. There's a few things going on, but I think this is going to be a nice season for being a really popular surf fishing season because of the great conditions, no more COVID. The oil spill that kind of messed us up here about a year and a half ago has completely gone now. No after effects of that now. So we're in a good spot here, and I think a lot of people are going to be into surf fishing going forward in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I agree. All right, second to last question.
It's the best, isn't it, Brian?
Oh, it is.
It really is.
Oh, it really
Brian,
is.
And one of the reasons I love about it, right, is you make your own luck. Okay, I don't really believe in luck in terms of like it randomly might happen. I believe in luck is a confluence of preparation and opportunity. And if you're on the beach, you've made all of your own luck. You're not reliant on the captain. You're not reliant on the deckhand to rig you up and tie your knots or whatever, or gaff your fish. It's all down to you. You are the captain. You're the deckhand. I think that's what makes surf fishing in that inshore environment just the most interesting, challenging kind of form of fishing that anybody can do. You don't need to be a millionaire as well. You don't need to have a boat. It's a big factor as well. So it is the best.
Yes,
in my opinion.
Oh, I think that's a true. I agree with your opinion, so that works out as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, well, that's a great place to end, then, isn't it?
Almost,
right,
almost
so
done.
This has been so much fun.
Oh, me too, man. You're not done yet. I got 2 more for you.
Oh my god. Okay, sorry.
Stuck.
Sorry. I wasn't trying to get rid of you at all.
Good. Well, that's good. What do you recommend to someone coming to your area to fish that has never been there before before they start fishing?
I'd say number one, make sure you've got some really suitable equipment. So getting yourself a nice usable surf spinning rod in the kind of 8 to 10 foot category, using 8-6 and 9-6 rods. Anything in the 4 to 10 or 6 to 12. But right now 6 to 12 is working really well. So that's probably a good place to start if you're just coming here. Get a 6 to 12 pound, 8-9 foot spinning rod. Load that 3,000-4,000 size reel with 15-pound braid, 10 or 15-pound braid. A little mono or fluorocarbon top shot, little Carolina rig, light fluorocarbon at the end. That's going to catch you so many fish of every variety wherever you are on that coastline. So that's a good place to start. Good reliable combo. Getting dialed into those tide times as well, so be able to plan a little bit. So say if you're coming here on holiday next week, you might look at those tides and pick out 3 or 4 that are going to be really nice when there is a decent amount of water moving, nice high tide, maybe early morning, or maybe a bit of water shifting out late just as that sun goes down, something like that. So a little bit of forward planning. Don't have the mentality, I'd say, of being, well, I'm just going to go fishing whenever I can because that's just how it is, and I'm going to still catch some fish. That probably isn't going to plan out too well for you if you end up trying to rock up on a busy Huntington Beach type scenario at 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. It's going to be crazy busy. So a little bit of forward planning, making sure that you've got the right equipment and you've done a little bit of research. It's definitely going to help you catch a few more fish, and being quite specific as well. So you might think, okay, well, I just want to catch a surf perch, so all I'm going to do is use these kind of small hooks, maybe a gulp sandworm, maybe a couple of little sand crabs, something like that. But I find a lot of people, they're trying to catch everything and they end up using these kind of junky dropper loops from like Walmart, those like wire ones with some junky squid or just some rubbish they've had lying around in their tackle box. And it doesn't really work. I've seen people using marshmallows as bait, all sorts of random stuff. So getting a really good kind of repertoire of bait and tackle that works. And even if you just hit someone up like myself, like local guide, and they'll tell you exactly what's used most of the time, or just my website's got it all listed on there. So that's the kind of thing I'd be looking at, is making sure I had a really good solid combo that was versatile, that I could take anywhere. And I also had some basic knowledge about the baits that were going to work, fresh bait preferably. Also some basic knowledge about what tides, what lunar cycle, and what water temperature, and what the kind of location of where I'm fishing and what I'm going to be fishing up against. So prior knowledge is really important, I think.
We should probably do this last bait check and get it done, huh? Last one of the episode coming hot. The final bait check is being brought to you by the Sinker Guy. Oh, you guys know it. Go on over to thesinkerguy.com and look at everything that Chip's got going on in the Sinker Guy garage. Sinkers, hey, he's got you covered. They're in his name. I mean, come on. You guys know I love those Sputniks. They are what I use, my very favorite set of sinkers. Always throwing them, and I've got plenty on there, and I always carry on extra on my cart, just in case somebody needs one. If you need terminal tackle, got it covered. Maybe some tools, scissors, pliers. Ooh, what else do we got in there? The bait, the thread needle to help you with getting the beads on the hook. The Sinker Guy method stuff. Oh, yeah. That stuff, still very important with matching the hatch. Maybe you need, I don't know, the Bruno rig. You ever heard of it? Super great rig. Doing great things up and down the East Coast and actually all throughout. So keep your eyes open, because there might be a new rig coming. Yeah, some fun stuff. They'll go on over to thesinkerguy.com. Get your order in today. Definitely. All right, last question for you, and we'll get you out of here. What is next for you?
I've got some interesting plans. So I think my tackle business, watch this space. You've got some interesting things coming out in the next few months. We have a small bait business, which is in the offing as well. We've been catching lots of fish on the prototype baits for those, and that's been kind of fun to start to develop that. So lots of things like that. I think our drone shark fishing program is going to kick into gear very soon this summer. So that's going to be really fun. I'm looking forward to doing that. Got pretty good at that last year with our new drone. Caught a whole load of really cool, interesting sharks off the beach. So we're going to kick into gear. I think there's everything, because everything's on the menu right now. So it's kind of I'm excited about everything right now. And so in terms of what's next, is that the next few months of, I think there's going to be some incredible fishing. I think there's going to be some really interesting tackle stuff which we're developing, and I'm just pretty excited. And personal fishing wise, I've caught a few really big corbina for my clients, 22, 23 inches. But I really want one myself. So I think the next few weeks, hopefully I'll be able to tick that box and get a really big monster corbina on the sand. I'd also, in terms of sharks, I'd like a really big shore-based thresher shark this year. And I would also like to catch a really large 7-gill shark at some point as well. So that's all in the offing for the next few weeks. So yeah, watch the space. Check out my Instagram, have a look at that, and you'll see some of the stuff that we've been talking about.
Oh, it's so good, Ben. Oh man, yeah, I'm so excited for you.
Yeah. Can I give a shout out to a few people as well, bro?
Please do. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you so much, mate. Well, so first of all, really shout out to all of my friends and colleagues over in California who've helped me, throughout the years develop my business, and have helped me early days, point me in the right direction on a few things. So those people, if you're listening to this, you know who you are. Thank you. Also, in terms of tackle companies, shout out to Okuma Fishing USA, we're big supporters, making great stuff that catches my clients loads of fish. So thank you very much, guys. We actually have an interesting. They made a really. Well, I've seen the rushes of a really cool film they made about surf perch fishing with me a few weeks ago, and they've got that coming out soon on YouTube. So check that out, Okuma Fishing USA, for the surf perch fishing film, which I think is a real work of art. I mean, it makes me look good, which is, if you're doing that, then doing something, you're doing a good job. If you're making me look reasonable on camera, because I'm the worst person ever on the camera. But they've made this beautiful film involving all sorts of drone footage, and there's like slow-mo B-roll. It's like absolutely incredible. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. So thanks Akuma, Fish Bites family, obviously Courtney, Brett, Scott, everyone, brilliant. Thank you so much for catching me loads of fish. I met you guys a few years ago, and been using your baits ever since. And I think this year is going to be really great as well. We're going to be using a lot more of those Fight Club stuff, the big halibut and the white sea bass. So, I think you guys have got on that for the fluke and the flounder over there. So kind of interested to use more of that this year. Cox and Rule, we import a lot of English surf fishing tackle because it's really high quality, really, really nice high quality hooks and swivels and stuff. So we use a lot of that. So my Cox and Rule colleagues back in England, again, thanks for making great stuff, always supporting us over here. And all of our shark hooks, for example, made from European steel. Cox and Rule Mutsu circle hooks, absolutely best circle hook you can buy. So I think that's about it really. Obviously my wife is incredibly supportive. I'm sure anybody who's got a partner who's into surf fishing will know that, sand in the bed, just sand everywhere, unhelpful working hours, strange times of strange things in the fridge, possibly strange smells. Odd sand crab that might get left in my pocket and gets forgotten, that kind of thing. So thank you very much, darling, for tolerating that. And that's about it, really. And thank you, Brian, as well, for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate that. I'm a fan. So this has been a real honor. And thank you so much for letting me just chat about all of the stuff that I'm into. Thank you.
I'm very thankful that you came on, and I am honored to have you. It was such a great episode, lots of great knowledge, and again, really cool stuff. And I'm just very excited and look forward to seeing everything you do in the future.
Oh, thanks, Brian. Well, look, anytime I'm in Florida, anytime I'm in Florida or over on the East Coast, I'm going to come and hit you up for a session because I really want a big redfish. That's definitely very high on my list. Sounds stuff I really want to catch.
Sounds good.
Yeah, anytime.
I'll find a way, one way or another. I'll find a way, and then when I get out to Cali, I'll definitely because I know I'll end up back out there for something. There's still I got a lot of friends still out there, so I will be back in SoCal eventually. So I will. I'll call you beforehand, and we'll go fish.
Awesome, mate. I can't wait. Look forward to it.
Likewise. All right, sir. You take care of yourself.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian. Take care.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully this episode helped you because it's helped me. I got a bunch from it. I got a huge amount from it. And I know I can use a lot of the same techniques here in Florida and anywhere else I go. And especially when I go out to Cali, I will definitely be contacting Ben. It's been phenomenal. Again, I'm so glad that we got to do this. You've been listening to Finding Demo Surf Fishing. Thanks for being here. Take care of yourselves. Share this out to somebody that needs that help because we're all here and we make each other better. And it's good times. All right. I am out of here. Later.